afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you're joining us from. Welcome to another exciting episode on Deborah's Strategy Room. Today we have an exciting topic I think affects literally everyone, regardless of their career or their state of their career. And many of us spend years trying to improve our skill sets, right? We learn new frameworks, get lots of certifications, contribute to projects sometimes, and even build amazing products in the process. But sometimes we still see that all of that goes invisible while trying to build a career. And today, I decided that we're going to talk about this issue and how we can navigate that. On today's episode, we have Adora Nwodo, and she has built an amazing career as an engineer, entrepreneur, author, educator. You can name all the titles, right? And sometimes I think she's a Wonder Woman in the industry, and I thought she'd be the best person to actually talk to us about this. Good to have you here, Adora, and welcome to one of these episodes.
Thank you so much. It's nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Awesome. All right, I have a ton of questions, right? But before we dive in, I know that you started your career off with like computer science, but I'd like you to give us a little bit of context into how all of this started for you. At what point did it start, and how is it going so far?
It started pretty early on. Like I'm one of those people that have like a very traditional background into like this field. I didn't transition. I didn't stumble on it. Like I was very clear from the very beginning. I think one of the things that, apart from the fact that obviously I started coding as a child, right? One of the things that really helped me was the access or the presence of mentorship at that time. Like I knew I loved computers. I knew I wanted to program. I knew I wanted to do that. My elder siblings saw me and saw that. But somewhere at the back of my head, I was just doing it. Like when you're like 6 or 8 or 9 or 10, whatever it is, however old I was, like it's just something that you're doing. I'm not putting like any thoughts into what's really going on. All I knew at the time was that I liked to code a lot. And then so I think one of the most interesting things was that like when you're in primary school, they don't give you a calculator. But then I think the mistake that my parents made was that they gave us a computer. So it's like I don't have a computer, but I have a calculator. Isn't that funny? So I built my own, like I programmed my own computer at the time with like VB.net, right? And so I would do my math assignments and then use the calculator to verify that all my answers were correct. And then I would go to school and I would pass math in flying colors. I love math as well, don't get me wrong. But at this point, I'm not even sure whether my programming made me like math even more because I was passing, or the fact that I loved math and I didn't want to fail made me start to code to find a way to make sure that I never failed. I don't, in my head right now, it's a chicken and egg situation. I don't remember which one came first anymore, but I liked both of them, right? And obviously, I did that for a while, got into high school as well. Everybody used to call me like the computer girl. Like sometimes I used to hate it so much so that even very tiny things that you want to do with your computer. First of all, if there's like any ICT assignments, people are coming to ask me for help. And then maybe sometimes, because I used to mess with my computers a lot, I used to mess with my drivers a lot. So when I uninstall a driver and then reinstall another driver that maybe enhances a certain feature of my system, people start to bring their computers to me and tell me to do the same thing for them. And I hated that because I'm like, I'm not a computer repairer. The fact that I'm doing all these things for myself doesn't mean that you people should now brand me this way. But the point is, I was very handy and I used to play with my systems a lot. I feel like the only thing that I did not do was carry a screwdriver and open the computer to see what was there and just like to actually see the motherboard. That was like the only thing I did not do. And so everybody was noticing. And I remember in SS2, like, you know, when it's now time to choose what you want to do, and like people are thinking about what your next step is in university, what course you want to study. I remember telling my brother that I wanted to study math and learn to code because I did not know computer science as a thing or like even how it worked or what the options were. And I think this is one of the
It wasn't so popular either.
It was popular either at the time, exactly. And I love math, and I knew that people studied math and things like industrial math, like those were like courses, right? Because I used to hear math a lot, and I've been someone that has loved math since like primary school, loved math in high school, was even best in further math in my set. So like me and math have always been like this, right?
Yeah.
And so I just felt like that was the next step, right? The next logical step for me was to do that. And I think this is why one of the reasons why having access to mentorship or career guidance or counseling in one way or another is very important.
Helps a
And
lot.
unfortunately, that's one thing that many people don't have because of the country that we're born in, right?
Yeah.
But I was very lucky to have that, right? Because my brother saw me. My brother had a friend at the time that was in MIT. And so he's at Google now. And so he connected me to him. And then we had a conversation and he was like, you like to code, you like math, and go and study. Like he said a lot of other things, but the one that I would always remember and the one I always talk about is where he said, go and study computer science, there's math inside. And I don't know whether he said it for me to get intrigued and be interested because of how much
Maybe.
everyone knew I liked math, or he said it
Mm-hmm.
because it was true. I mean, there was math inside, but like I don't know whether he said it as a way to sell the course to me, or he said it because it seemed like that was the kind of thing I should be doing. But that was eventually the path I followed. Now, I started telling everybody that okay, this is what I want to do, this is where I want to go. My mom, our mothers have friends everywhere. And they always have one friend in one church, one friend in one society.
Yeah.
So apparently, my mom had a friend that had a daughter that was
Mm-hmm.
also in Unilag at the time, studying computer science. That was like 2 or 3 years above. I don't remember the year anymore. But I had access to this, my brother's friend in MIT as a remote mentor. And now I also had access to someone who was going to be in the same school as me, right? And was just going to like help me and show me the ropes and make a bunch of things make sense. I mean, I hated it from the very beginning because Nigerian universities will stress you. And I was also coming from a very British curriculum at the time because my high
Yeah.
school, and then throwing me into the Nigerian way of life, the Nigerian curriculum, Nigerian everything. I was fed up. I remember there are some days when I'll get an assignment, I'll throw my books on the floor, I'll kick my laptop away, I'll just start crying because I'm like, I can't do this. I don't want to do this. Why do I have to do this? Who sent me here? But I think the main thing was that I had people cheering me on and people that
Mm-hmm.
just told me that it's going to be hard. Like unfortunately, you didn't go to like all these model your transition wasn't from a model college to a
Yeah.
grand school where you've been doing these things for a very long time. They carried you like egg for 6 years in a British high school and they came to drop you here. Of course you are going to suffer. Of course you are going to struggle. So I did struggle, right? And I think part of that struggle is what shapes the hustle. Part of that struggle helps me discover myself to know that yes, I like programming, but I like other things as well. Like I even started teaching as far back as in school. Like people would come to me, like groups, clusters of people, they need something, they need help close to exam. I'm like their tutor or their teacher or whatever. Right. I started creating from a very early age as well. Like I had a business that I turned into an e-commerce business because I had the skill sets of building websites. I was selling made in Nigeria shoes. I took that business online, right? So I think all of these things are intertwined into one big blob of life that I have gone through over the years, right? All of that basically just led to like how I started building my skills, building myself, eventually into like how I got my first job as well. Like everything started from like that one moment. And apart
Yeah.
from the discovery of love for computers and all of those things, one key thing that I would always highlight was the fact that I had a support system and it was very helpful.
That's such a unique but also interesting story. And I love that you highlight something very important that a lot of people overlook. That you had support, you had opportunity, and then there was like access. And it's one of the like some of the issues that so many persons growing up from this part of the world struggle to get. But like you had it at a very age, and I see how that kind of shaped your career. And I see that it now spans across engineering, writing, entrepreneurship, speaking, community leadership, and all of that. So, how did you make the decision about where to invest your time in, or how to avoid becoming known for everything instead of being known for something impactful?
I think
Or like,
the funny thing is I did not tailor anything. Like people would sit down and ask me, oh, what framework do you have? Or what's the thing that you do? Now that I'm sitting down and thinking about a lot of things, very recently, I have codified if the first framework I've ever codified in my life very recently is a framework to how I lead engineering teams. But I don't even up till today have a framework for like building a personal brand or like how I did all these things. The only thing I would say, and that I always say, obviously, if I think deep, maybe for like 3 minutes, I can come up with something that is reasonable. But like that wouldn't be a framework. That would just be like points to get you into the direction. But how did I get here? I followed my. This might sound very cheesy. I don't want to say followed my interest. Well, I would say I followed my heart. Basically, I did all the things I wanted to do. And I just kept waking up every day and I kept trying. For the engineering bits, we already know, like, I had a traditional path into being a software engineer. I got my first
yeah,
job I did as a software engineer. I've gotten other jobs since then, and I've just been engineering ever since. Right? For like public speaking, it was very different. As a child, I was someone that was very outspoken. Like, and even now that I'm an adult, I'm back to that because I'm back to myself.
yeah, you can see it in the
Um,
personality.
exactly. And so I'm always someone that's like, I was very outspoken. If you tell me anything, my next question is why. Like, and sometimes some people hate it, but my parents understand that this is just how I've always been. Right.
Yeah.
And so, like, I grew up that way, but somewhere along the line, I lost it for whatever reason. And so I started public speaking because I became so shy. And at some point, I even felt like I was like, I don't want to say a shadow of myself because it's not that deep, but I wasn't who I was. Right? Looking at myself as a child and as a teenager and then as an early adult, let's say 1920. The 13, 12-year-old version of me wasn't the 19, 20-year-old version of me. And so I wanted to fix that. And I remember like I used to be one of those good morning co-debaters kind of children. Like I'm all over in your face. Like I was the child that when it's time for a science competition, a math competition, a what's that other thing called? Like the debates that people do, like I'm there.
Yes.
When it's time for match past, I'm in the middle of the match past. When it's time for I was in the band in primary school. I wasn't in the band in high school, though, but I was in the band in primary school. So like I was everywhere and all over the place. And so I thought about what could get me back to being everywhere and all over the place. And I went on Eventbrite one day. No, sorry, Meetup. It was Meetup. It wasn't Eventbrite. Although I did go on Eventbrite, I didn't say anything useful. Oh no, sorry. Actually, I went on Eventbrite first because Eventbrite was more popular than Meetup. It was, I think, after the first event, and I started hearing Meetup coming up in tech communities, and I started going,
Yeah.
I found more communities. Meetup was the thing at that time, right? But I remember I went to Eventbrite first. What was I looking for? A conference, a meetup, even if it was a round table, a webinar, something. I wanted to reach out to one of the speakers, like one of the organizers, and tell them that you might have already gotten speakers for this event, but I'd like to be at your next one. Right? And so I reached out. I remember like sending an email just saying, hey, because I was big into Android development at that time.
Yeah.
I was doing like Android native development. I was full stack, but I was tilting towards Android more because of like where I was working and the kinds of systems that I was building at that time. And so I just reached out and said, oh, I'd like to talk about this. I think I even pitched what I was going to talk about, which was most likely like testing in Android environments. Didn't think anybody was going to get back to me. They got back to me, right? And then I went and spoke at that event. I remember in my head, it was a very awful speech. It was a very awful speech. And maybe it's also because I'm a perfectionist. Like there's certain things people around you would tell me, even like people that work with me on my team, like whether it is at Nexa Scale, whether it is even like the editors I'm working with for a book or a course. There's sometimes they'll tell me something is okay, and I'll say, no, it's not. There's something missing. And I need to fix this before this thing goes live. Like that's how I am. And that's how I've always been. So I don't know whether to the audience it was a crappy presentation, but to me, it was. But I mean, if it was a crappy presentation, nobody would have walked up to me, right? But something interesting
Yeah.
happened. Someone was in the audience that was, now I don't remember whether it was GDG or Joe. I think he's Ojo Festac or GDG Ikorodu. Because I know I spoke at the Dev Fest for both of them in that year, but I don't remember which one came
Yeah.
first. This happened around like, let's say This thing I'm talking about happened like September or October. And so that their dev fest was going to be in November. I'm not sure whether it was Ojo Festac or Ikorodu, but one of them GDG organizers walked up to me. I was like, hey, very nice talk. Would like you to, I think it was Ikorodu. Would like you to come and speak. We're doing dev fest. And at that time, I wasn't even in community. I already had my job, right? I
Yeah.
was working and I was like building things for like big customers at the time because I was working in an agency that kind of felt like a consultancy. So we had big clients like banks, FMCGs. I was already in like proper corporates, right? But I really just wanted to
Yeah.
start thing because I wanted to break out of that shell, get comfortable with doing the uncomfortable, if that makes sense, because I was scared of speaking. And then they reached out to me. I agreed, it was my own. I'll come and speak again. The more I speak, the more I get comfortable with
You
speaking,
better get, yeah.
the better I get. And hopefully, I break away the shackles or I break out of this chain that is preventing me from, being as vocal as I know that I'm supposed to be. And so, like, that
Mhm.
was the whole thing for me. I went to GDG Korodu again, and then someone that was working at Google at the time was in the audience, and he just picked interest in me, like because he felt like I delivered a fantastic presentation. To be honest, even me, that second talk, I agree that that second talk was good. The first one, I struggled a little bit to be sure whether it was good or not. The one I did at that event. But the one
You
at
could
GDG,
confirm.
I can remember that it was good because I remember standing in front of my mirror for multiple days. And just like when I
Rehearsing.
get stuck because I'm scared, I'll start again from the very beginning. So I did it. And so the delivery was better. And also, I like to think, I don't know, people will tell me by themselves, but I like to think that I am someone that at least a little bit has a bit of personality. And so I try to bring myself like into
Mhm.
that. So I guess I made it more, and I'll crack dry jokes here and there. I'll try to be cute, I'll try to be funny, whatever. But I think that second talk was much more relatable and less robotic than the first one. And so people liked it. And then it just became a thing where I was constantly getting called up, or sometimes or somebody would forward because I was very clear that I wanted to do more public speaking. And so,
Mhm.
like, somebody would forward a speaking opportunity to me, I would apply. Or sometimes somebody would even directly reach out to me and say, hey, we have this meetup, we have this webinar, we have this thing. Do you want to come
Mhm.
on? And so, like, without even knowing, in my head, was my own. I don't want to do free work at that time. Like, what was my own? Like, I just want to do my job, get paid. And I was trying to get ready for a master's degree at the time, do my job, get paid. At some point, write my GREs, and then move to America. Was my own. That was what was in my head, right?
Yeah.
So I wasn't really thinking about, oh, I'm building a brand because I had also started my YouTube channel at that time to force myself to be in front of a camera because in my head the worst thing that will happen when I upload these videos is that people will laugh at me, but at least I'm going to consistently rehearse. For me, making
Get better.
videos was rehearsing how to speak to people that were not close to me, right? So everything was still as a result of me getting comfortable speaking. And
Yes.
so I did that for a while, and I didn't realize that I was building a public speaking brand as I was doing all of that. I kept doing it, and then boom, it just became a thing. That's, oh, when you think about me, you think about public speaking. I'm a speaker. So like that's one example of like following my passion or my heart or following what I love. So it wasn't because I wasn't trying to build a public speaking brand. I wasn't trying to be intentional about building a brand. I was just doing things that was going to help me get to the goal I had, which was getting back to the version of me that I really loved, the version of me that was outspoken and, somewhat all over the place. Right. That was that. And then, with some of these things, just like come other things as well, right? Educating for me, something that I said I always wanted to do. When it now finally dawned on me, indeed, that I am building a platform, right? I now decided to take that platform, take that community, take that following, and start to give back to it. And so that was when like educating came into the mix as well, in form of like writing books, creating courses, all of these things. It's like, okay, I have knowledge now. Maybe it's time to share it. Right. And so that was sort of like how that entered, the mix. And the entrepreneurship question, It's just like I said, following my heart, doing things I love. I've always loved whether it's free money or money I worked for. I like money. And so any opportunity for me to make it right legally, ethically, I would. And so, like I mentioned before, I had a made in Nigeria shoe business even back when I was in like uni. And so for me, other avenues, whether it is through like monetizing the money or building things and, having those secondary money making avenues just came like naturally to me because I mean, it's unfortunate because of the time that we are in. But many people will tell you to not have one stream of income. So it's like, okay, what other things can you do to get other streams of income as well, multiply your income and just, do that. So some revenue comes from different places, consulting, advisory, um, educating, or like, it just comes from different places now. And that's sort of like how that happened too. Yeah. So I think I've answered all your questions.
Yes, and that's an interesting way to like diversify. And I also like that you pointed out your interest in each and every single one of them. Because sometimes today people force some of these things simply because there's this trend where you hear people say, just post on LinkedIn or just become more visible. You should just do this. And there are people who naturally are not interested in those. But then you see, because like it's expected to do that now in this day and age, so many persons are like imposing that on them. And so how do you balance visibility with building genuine credibility, right? And what do people think or often get wrong when it comes to this as a whole?
I think the biggest problem is in the metric that people define visibility by. Visibility doesn't have to mean hundreds of thousands of followers. There are some people that is their thing. There are other
Yeah.
people that have visibility through the projects that they create. I don't remember this guy's name. Actually, I remember his name. His name just popped into my head. His name is Shegun. I don't remember
Yeah.
his project, but I don't think when you are looking at most popular front end engineers, Shegun comes to your mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he's built, I don't remember the name. I'm also not a front end developer, so I don't even remember the name of the project because I don't use it. But he built that tool, like whatever that, I think it was something relating to CSS packages or something like that.
Yeah.
And I remember someone tweeting 2 years ago that they were just looking at, like, they went to inspect ChatGPT's website and they saw that
Yeah.
that package was getting used. Right? There's another example of someone that I know that he's in Microsoft now. He was in Andela before he joined Microsoft, and he built a tool called Coverlet. It's open source now. When I was
Mm-hmm.
at Microsoft, my team, we were using Coverlet as our code coverage tool. Now, I feel like Coverlet has grown so big at this point that he doesn't own it anymore. Like it's now just like a Microsoft or like a .NET ecosystem open source project that the entire community, is a part of. There are a bunch of maintainers. He's one of them, obviously. But like it's beyond him. There's no way that for things that he's done, Coverlet hasn't brought him visibility either from people that are doing similar things, finding him, connecting with him, or for him maybe even using Coverlet as a reference when he wants to apply for maybe a grant or a global talent visa or the EB1 visa, whatever it is. The problem is that many people think that visibility is by posting on LinkedIn every day. I'm not saying don't post. I post sometimes, but it is about giving value. Whatever way that value comes, I would always say that it should be something that you enjoy. It should be something
Yeah.
that you like. And when people ask me, how do I get visible? What do I do? I always say, when you are coming into community is important, right? Community is great. Either you join one and you contribute or you build one, right? It has helped a lot of people's careers. Community did not help me get my first job or my second job or my community hasn't really helped me get any job, but community is helping me build a brand that is helping, like, that I am using to do other things within the ecosystem and myself. right?
Yeah.
So it could add value to you in different ways. For some people, it might help you get your first job, your second job, your third job. For some people, it might help you grow your life in other ways. But the point is, if you are deciding that you want to be part of one, you should be thinking about it from a place of what can I give? Not what can I take or how can I appear to be something that people want, because that's where you miss it. The reason why a lot of people that you see are doing as well as they are is because they found a way to differentiate themselves from others. Like they have experiences, perspectives, skills, stories, different things that make their voices distinct, that make people want to listen to them. And everybody does. But the problem is some people just want to post AI slop for the sake of consistently showing up every day. And that's a problem. Some people are shy. Some people don't want to do public speaking. Some people don't want to post on LinkedIn because they don't want to bring themselves out there. But some of those people would never look for jobs. Why? Because maybe they have one CNCF project, right? And so when startups want to hire in the distributed system space, they're always asking them, I'm building XYZ, we're a series A, YC startup, we're building XYZ, we are aware of your project, blah blah blah. Would you like to come and join us? There's some people that will never look for jobs again just because of certain things that they've done. If you check the through line of everything, if you check different kinds of people, what you would see is that they're providing value. Whether they are providing value in telling their authentic stories and sharing their voice, or they're providing value in research, contributing to the industry or contributing to academia, or they're providing value in education, teaching people one way or another, or they're building projects that are useful. The point is they're providing value. And so it's not just by trying to be visible so that people see. Because, okay, if you are visible, people have seen you. But somehow, when they find you, they don't see anything useful. What exactly is the point? Right? I'll give two examples. You are visible. You're a website everybody knows. Let's call it Anita.com, right? Anita.com sells shoes or baseball bats. People that want baseball bats will go to Anita.com to buy a baseball bat.
Yeah.
And then sometimes somebody might ask, oh, where did you get this baseball bat from? I got it from Anita.com. They'll go and check. They'll see. They'll buy a baseball bat. Now, the value that you are providing into society is that you make and sell baseball bats. And so everybody sees that. Everybody knows you and knows what you are about. Now, let's look at somebody else. Let's call it box.com, right? Box is a real company. Boxy.com, right? Let's call it boxy.com. Now, when you go to Boxy, you are not even sure what's happening there, right? Like, you most likely everything you search on Google or even when you go online, maybe like on Instagram or Twitter or something, there's always a Boxy ad. So if it's visibility, Boxy has it. But then when you click into the Boxy website, you are just maybe seeing a dancing robot. Like you're seeing a dancing robot up somewhere. You are seeing a game and you are confused and you don't even know, okay, when I get to this place, what value am I supposed to get?
What value? What problem am I solving for me?
What problem are you solving? What are you giving me? Okay, I visited your website and then, right? And so
True.
even if you are doing things for visibility on LinkedIn, if you are all over the place and you can't even, first of all, provide value, you can't defend the value that you have, you might be popping up in some recruiter searches, right? But it is only going to take a while before. Sometimes it might take the first interview after even collecting your CV, the first recruiter call, for them to see you don't have that substance. Or sometimes it might even be very obvious from the profile for them to tell that you don't have that substance. So even if you come up when they do that, their LinkedIn recruiting backend thing, and you come up there, if they're trying to send messages to somebody, they'll skip you, right? And so it's not only about the fact that many people can find you. The first thing you want to optimize for is, if I get found, why are people finding me? Imagine you are trying to build a platform or a cloud engineering career, but when people find you, they're asking you about Java and Swift mobile engineering jobs. There's a disconnect. There's a problem,
Yes.
right? And this is happening a lot now because people that maybe have skills in one thing or another, right? Maybe mobile engineering or community building. Because everybody in the industry is talking about AI, they want to talk about it too. But they're not now talking about it from a place where it actually ties into the work that they are doing. They're just talking about it. And so there's a
Yeah.
disconnect. Like, are you an AI engineer, or are you doing applied AI into your field, or are you an AI enthusiast? Are you doing ML? What exactly is going on here? I can't tell. And so I think when you're trying to think through that whole like value versus visibility and all of that, I think the biggest thing is like I said, providing value, giving, and then finding the thing that differentiates you and then
Mhm.
going to demonstrate that. So like whatever expertise that you have, whatever experiences you have, whatever skills or stories that you have, demonstrating that, whether it's through things you build, like through your work, through your results. For someone like me, I do a lot of advocacy when I have results. I do a lot of sharing my stuff online, maybe when I've built something or when I've launched a course or when I've written a book, when I have results, when I have something tangible that somebody can hold, right? That might not be your strategy. Your strategy might be that you want to build in public until you fully launch the thing. There is
Yeah.
no right or wrong way to do anything. The most important thing is just that you are sharing that expertise, whether it's through content you're creating, speaking, projects, open source contributions that you're making. Find what speaks to your personality. Don't just jump and do something because everybody's doing it. Because there are different avenues, there are different ways. There are people that are doing really well in their careers that don't have one video on YouTube about them speaking in a conference, or even one video. They don't have a YouTube channel. They are not
Yeah.
on Twitter, right? On LinkedIn, maybe they post sparingly, but like everybody knows who they are. And so finding the thing that makes everybody want to look for you, the value that you can pour into your industry that differentiates you and, is a valuable contribution, go and do that thing. One valuable contribution is so much better than 100 things that don't add value or keep you visible. Because even if you have that visibility, you can't hold on to it. Like it can't convert into something for you, because even if
Yeah.
people will find you, when they find you and they actually don't know where to place you, they will
Mm-hmm.
leave, right?
True.
And so like that's one thing that I wish more people, and I know it's hard because the current industry is not even helping matters, right? The fact that a lot of people are doing things, so you have that FOMO because you feel like if I'm not doing this thing too, there's something wrong with me, right? But it is better to take a step back and think through what you want to do and go ahead and just like do the thing than to be all over the place because you feel like that's what you should be doing.
I find this very profound that visibility doesn't mean you should become a content creator. And I wish a lot of people can actually take this, if that's the only thing you take from this. Because I see so many persons today, everyone wants to post, and they say you have to be active on LinkedIn for people to notice you. But like some of these examples you gave also just made me realize that you don't have to become a content creator to, be visible in the eyes of recruiters or people. And one thing that I admire about your journey is that you have led initiatives before having formal leadership titles, right? And so like what does leadership mean to you, and how did you transition to that stage where you were actively taking on leaderships like through your career?
What does leadership mean to me? This sounds cheesy. I don't like the fact that when I sit down and think of like a response to something, it's like a cheesy thing in my head. But
No, it's not.
for me, leadership is service, right? What does leadership mean to me? Leadership means providing opportunities to
Hmm.
serve like the community or the people or my directs or like whatever it is. Being able to be a role model,
Yeah.
right? being able to be someone that can inspire them, coach them, teach them, right? And also being able to be someone that can advocate for them. That's what leadership is for me. Like my directs now, like I say this thing a lot to them. I'm like, my job is to, I will open PRs because now I work in a small company, right? And like once in a while, if there's nobody else to do the work and I can find like, a bunch of PRs to open, especially in like maybe the infrastructure side of things or the cloud deployments or like Kubernetes, I will open a PR, I'll check it in, we'll deploy it together. That's fine. But that's not my job. My job is to create the opportunity for you to do your job and step out of the way so that you can properly do that. Unblock you, find resources, create processes that make things easy, spot problems in how we're working and optimize those things. So whether it's process optimization, whether it's like helping you work on the right thing based on what the company goals are, or helping you even feel happy to come to work every day because you spend a lot of time with the people that you work with. Like the point
Yeah.
I tell them is that I work for you. So don't look at me as someone that is here to like boss you out. There's a difference between a leader and a ruler, right?
So
I don't know
true.
if you get what I mean, right?
Yeah.
So when I think about leadership, I think about service, I think about sacrifice. And that's how it's always been for me, right? I exist to make sure that you have everything that you need to excel. And even like before I officially became like a manager, for example, like you would find me volunteering to do certain things, like volunteering to write docs after we've shipped a big project, or volunteering to do some certain optimizations here and there, right?
Yeah.
Once we've shipped to close out, certain things, or to present at maybe like a team wide meeting and show people this is how you do the thing and just like carry people along. I used to volunteer to mentor people as well. Like even when I was at Microsoft, I remember doing the Microsoft Leap thing. Leap is like a pipeline from like non-traditional tech role. Then you do the
Yeah.
Leap apprenticeship program for quite a bit, and then you can now get a job in tech. There's so many people that were in like IT support or finance or like other kinds of roles that were not traditional engineering that came in through that program, and now like they're doing amazing today. And so like I remember volunteering consistently for things like that, for Leap, or even like I remember when I did like an Andela. That was even where I met some people in like this industry now, in this ecosystem. I remember doing like an Andela. Andela used to have those boot camps, ALC
Yeah,
something.
I recall. I recall.
Yeah, and I remember like just like being a mentor for I think like three of those cohorts, right? Just like mentoring people, and like contributing to that and being a mentor because mentorship is one of the, I don't want to say easiest ways, but one of the like most straightforward paths to leadership for someone that doesn't have the official leadership title in one way, because you get to grow people. Like, you get to advocate for people, you get to inspire people, you get to teach people, you get to do all these things that I've already talked about before. And so that helps you get into like, that sort of thing.
That's actually so real because when you talked about being a leader is different from ruling, also made me realize that so many persons today see leadership as just managing people, telling somebody do this, do that, or get this or get that, right? But there's so many forms of leadership. There's technical leadership, community leadership, thoughtful leadership. There's different ways to look at leadership today. And I think leadership creates opportunities, but only when other people trust your judgment. So, how do you position yourself in a way that not only do they trust your judgment, but they also trust that you're leading them to the right direction?
When you're in that position, there's one very hard truth that you have to accept, right?
Yeah.
I might, when I was an engineer, I might have been maybe like one of the best DevOps engineers on my team. Now that I'm a manager, I am a manager, not an engineer. Yes.
Yeah.
Should managers have engineering experience? Yes, I honestly think that I don't believe in those textbook managers or those Jira ticketing kind of managers. I believe that it's important for managers or engineering leaders to have the right technical context, because sometimes you are the difference between your team and a bad decision. You would pressure test some things. You would ask certain questions that they might not be thinking about in that very moment, because maybe they're either attached to the work or they are looking for an easy way out. It will happen, right? So I think the first way to build trust is for them to understand that you are on their side,
Yeah.
right? It's not okay, I manage you, and so the company's priorities, um, this is what we must do at this time, and this is how we must ship. My job is to shield you from the madness. I'm in the middle, right? So this is you, this is me, this is everything else. My job is to
Yeah.
shield you from everything else, right? Yes, once in a while, those things will still touch you, especially when they are big things, right? That affect the company in a way that everybody, unfortunately, just has to be aware, right? But
Mm-hmm.
my job is to shield you from that. And so, first of all, gaining that trust is building that interpersonal relationship with you, understanding that, okay, first of all, and actually also understanding situational leadership, right? This person likes public praise. This
Yeah.
person likes these kinds of incentives. Different people like different things. This person doesn't really care what kind of work you give them. They just want to contribute to the growth of the business. I'm going to find challenging opportunities and send them their way so that they're excited. This person enjoys working on things around developer experience. Yes, once in a while, there might not be some developer experience, CI/CD, deployment type work to give them. When that isn't the case, let them work on something else, but let them know why. And also maybe let them now have the opportunity to update, run books, or do certain like technical desk work that still allows them to function on the DX side, right? So the first step in building trust is building that interpersonal relationship with like the people on your team. You're not their therapist. You don't have to be. But at least you people need to get along, right? In one way, and just have them understand that you advocate for them, you're on their side, all of that stuff, and you
Yeah.
people are here to work together. Now, the next thing is having your own technical judgment. I don't believe sometimes, right, your team would come and tell you to be able to do this work, we need to do this work first, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, this work, maybe like some background fundamental work, doesn't really add value in terms of what the business is asking for. But what you're
Yeah.
asking was, and they're like, we can do this thing that you're asking us to do, right? But it might just mean that we end up doing it in a crappy way, and we might need to come back to it to do certain things after, right? So being able to like be transparent and have these conversations and say, okay, let's weigh this. Let's say we need to do this fundamental work first, and we are assuming that it's going to take us a month. In my head, a month means like 6 weeks or 8 weeks, right? We're assuming that this is going to take us a month. This will take us a month, and then we would now be able to jump into this main thing that hits this company goal. Now, let's say we're not able to hit the company goal in time. Let's negotiate these milestones. Like, let's know what is good enough for like MVP, what is good enough for maybe like V1, V2, or doing later. But not just
Yeah.
being the person that says, oh, the business said we should do this. Because at that point, I'm not your leader. I'm not your advocate. I'm not weighing what the business, I'm supposed to be the voice of reason that
Mm-hmm.
is sort of like marrying what the business wants versus what technology can give. And so if all I am doing is coming to tell you what the business wants, then my layer is not important because the CEO can tell you himself, right? But then the work that I am doing is supposed to sit through things, talk about priorities, negotiate with you, and then also have that technical judgment to say, you are saying that you want us to build an outbox monitor
Mm-hmm.
and you want to implement it yourself. Why can't we just use a tool like the Bezium that makes us faster? Right? Or you're saying that you want to do a lot of infrastructure stuff for multi-cloud and you want to use CloudFormation and you want to use Azure Bicep. Why can't we just use Terraform once and have like the same tooling deployed to all the clouds. These sorts of things can only come when you are technical enough to have these conversations. They are more technical than you. In that area, they've officially become smarter than you because you're
Yes.
a bit out of touch. They're closer to the code, right? And so sometimes it's not about you defining exactly what they should do and forcing them and making sure that they do it, but reasoning with them to understand how to find a balance, right? And that
Yeah.
really is how you build that trust, right? You build trust by still staying technical and not just being a process kind of leader. You also want to build that personal relationship with them. And you also really just want to advocate for them in certain situations because there are some times that leadership will push you and you can push back. In those situations when you can push back. In those situations when you can't, come and tell them the reality and say, what, what is the best thing that we can do? Reason with
Right
them
now.
together, right? And then, go back to leadership and be like, okay, this is what we can do, this is what we can offer, this is how we'll go about it, right? And let that be what like now drives the decision, right? So you're not only the one making all the decisions, you're not only the one doing all the architecture diagrams because you can't anymore. But it does not mean that you should now only live in Jira. You have to find that balance of doing a lot of these things. And the more like you grow, the more strategic work you start to do. The more things you start to measure, the more you start to understand what is working, what is not working. You start to find people problems in places you did not think that people problems could exist because you
Yeah.
think you made a decision, it's codified. One team understands the decision, another team doesn't. The team that understands the decision is working well, right, with things. The other team that
Yes.
doesn't is going to build something else. You have to build normalization into that system for people to
Yeah.
understand, for people to know, okay, this is how I should be doing what I'm supposed to be doing. You have to think about, okay, in the last 3 months, we've been doing XYZ. I've noticed that the amount of maybe you're checking Dora metrics, right? We're always, when people are checking in code, there's always broken pipelines. Things are like there are problems, right? Or reliability, something is going on. Like we spent our whole error budget. Our systems are not as reliable as they used to be. We're getting more one or two incidents than we used to get. When you now start to think of all those like things as well, you now have to start making decisions around, do we spend time paying technical debt and fixing things in our systems, or do we spend time building more features? There are now some certain decisions around judgments that are still technical but not necessarily code related that you will now start
Yeah.
thinking about too. So it's a combination of different things, basically. But I would say building trust requires staying technical and just like not being their friend, but having good relationships with people.
Now, this just brought me like a very interesting question, and you pointed about most people being out of touch, right? I see this pattern where there are individuals that have built a reputation maybe in the early stages of their career, and then they've gotten to this age and era where they're like new technologies, and then it's very hard for them to keep up, and so they're banking on the reputation that they built before, and they don't know how to like break into like transition and still show that they have relevance and value. But like when I look at some of the books that you've written, I see how it transcends from like introduction to the cloud to also like educating leaders and stuff. So how would you say people can stay relevant in their respective industries while also building a reputable brand?
I feel like with something like technology, there's always something. With a career like ours, I think I saw it on X this morning that in tech, there's always something new to learn. Is this how all the industries are, or did we just choose chaos? I don't know if you saw that post as well.
Yes, I
And
saw
so-
it.
and I saw it and I laughed, right? And the truth is, there in like you can't really control how many things you're going to unfortunately have to keep learning and growing and upskilling and updating yourself and things like that. And so that's why for me, like foundational knowledge is very important because
Yes.
at the end of everything, whatever comes on top of it is the new system or the new shiny technology. but the fundamentals still stay the same. So if you're thinking about how do you lead in this AI era, a lot of things are still fundamentally the same. If you're thinking about how do you lead in this AI era, before, how was it that you were leading when you were building regular SaaS? You were leading through, let me call it normalization, having everybody buy into the vision and understand how to, do certain things. You were leading through engineering excellence, right? So basically, everybody on your engineering teams use the same tools for opening PRs, use the same tools for have run books that they update when people are on call, use the same tools for their build systems, for code reviews, all of these things. Now AI agents are coding with you. And so the thing of engineering excellence still counts. How you might implement it may be a bit different. And that is where the fundamentals are important. Normalization still counts. But now you don't only have to share context with human beings, you have to share it with agents. And this is where maybe things like in this new world, things like SDD make sense, right? Things like, skills make sense, right? So I wrote this Claude skill, for how to do these certain things. So that if Claude is doing this for me, Claude knows, right? Or we've written out these specs. We're doing SDD. So now we have these specs to know maybe if there's going to be an AI engineered code change or an AI agent reviewing these PRs. We know how they should or what they should do, right? From a normalization POV. From an engineering excellence POV, we still know that we should check things, test AI code changes, validate that they work. Now, because it's AI and there's no, they don't have some certain context, even if we're trying to give them as much context as is possible, they don't have some certain context. We now have to put platform guardrails, right? To make sure that these guardrails are in place for the changes that they make so that they don't go and press spoil somewhere, right? All these sorts of things are things that we are doing now that we were not necessarily doing before. But fundamentally, we've been doing those things in a different way. And so artificial intelligence is applied to every industry and every corner of our lives. Think academia, think research, think healthcare, think legal, think hospitality, supply chain, technology within the technology, software engineering, technology research, right? Like all the different parts, computer science, IoT. I feel like even when you think of robots as well, you still say AI and robotics, right? And so even from that robots angle as well, there's still that. So when I say AI, I just don't mean transformer technology. I just don't mean what has happened in the last 4 years with LLMs and all of that. I mean artificial intelligence since the mid 90s that we know it to be. It's touching a lot of industries. Sorry, in the mid 1900s, 1960 something, that time. But it's touching a lot of things. It's touching a lot of things, right?
Yeah.
And so think about how that translates to the industry that you are in. If you're an SRE, right? The AI SRE is one thing that you should most likely pick up. Understand these new tools that are coming up, AI ops, right? If you are someone that is sort of community leader, right? Now, what areas are you existing in? If you've been doing things in cloud computing, stay in your cloud computing and maybe keep your message the way you've kept it. But now think about adding GPUs to the list of things that you talk about, right? Hosting GPUs, managing GPU fleets, caring about GPUs, deployment of GPUs, all of those kinds of things. If you are someone that was in the open source space, right? There are open source models. There are open source, there's open source AI, right? Think about what's going on with Goose, for example. think about MCP, right? Think about different projects within like the Linux Foundation that are AI related and whatever contribution you can make there. If you are someone that has always cared about security and governance and all of those things, right? AI governance is its own thing, right? AI security is its own thing. Authorization as well. Once upon a time, we only cared about a user's identity, a machine's identity. Does this machine have access to this token to call this website and do this thing? If I want to maybe like write a batch job, for example, or does this user have access to this document? Right.
Yeah.
But now, from the process of authorization, we're thinking about AI agents too. Do these AI agents have access to do X, Y, Z? So fundamentally, every single thing we've always cared about, we're still caring about today. The only difference is in how we care about it and the fact that there's not a new kid on the block that it's like when you are a person or an adult, right? Let's say you start a family and you have 2 kids. Now you're a family of 4, right? When you're a family of 4, you're living your life, right? You have a 5th child. Every single thing you did as a family of 4, you will do as a family of 5. You are now just unfortunately doing it, not unfortunately, because children are blessings. Don't get me wrong. You are now just now doing it for one extra person. You understand what I mean? So that's how I
Yeah.
feel about this. And so for people that feel like maybe it has disrupted their industry, it's because AI has introduced a lot of problems, and now there are so many problems that you can even sit down and think about solving, right?
Yeah.
Whether it is agent context, or whether it is agent memory, whether it is security. Now that Google released something yesterday, I was seeing graph engineering. We're talking about harness engineering early in the year. Then 2 months ago, loop engineering. Now graph engineering. But I
Yes.
promise you, if you actually sit down and read that paper or watch that course that they're talking about in graph engineering, you will realize that it is a concept that you already know about, something relating to distributed systems. There is
Yes.
nothing new. It's just a shiny new thing. They've painted it, they've put mustache, they've put lip gloss, they've given it a new name. It's nothing new. And so I know it's extra work for a lot of people, and frankly, it can be annoying. You just have to stay on top. But find that niche that you already exist in, that niche that you excel in, so that you don't stress yourself and you're not all over the place, confused and trying to figure out what works. Find that niche that you excel in with the things you know you already know, and then just figure out how you apply AI to those things. And do that and just move on with your life.
That's interesting. And I really like that response. And we're slowly drawing to the end of this. But I know so many persons that I have been anticipating this session have this question. So if I was trying to, invest in my career intentionally over the next couple of months, and I want to also build a brand that on the long term I can be proud of, right? What are some of the things that you would tell them to prioritize to build a career that opens doors for them before they even like try to submit their resume or pitch themselves or even become content creators on LinkedIn? So like what would you tell them to do instead?
Invest in learning the fundamentals. Whatever area that you are in,
Mhm.
go back to the roots, because AI is not the end of all of this. I've been
Yeah.
seeing companies recently hiring quantum educators, quantum computing, engineers. It's coming, right? And very soon, AI will still exist with quantum computing will even make AI faster.
Yeah.
So a lot faster, right? And so but it's not going to be a new thing that people have to learn and optimize for. And all of this, the big thing is understanding the fundamentals, going back to the basics in whatever version, that you exist in, right? Understanding the core of distributed systems. If you are supposed to be a backend engineer or a cloud engineer or someone that works in distributed systems, you do a lot of things with Kubernetes, or you're just like building backend systems normally. There's no reason why, when you're thinking about like, if I have a conversation with you, maybe like in a systems design interview or something, I'm talking to you about consensus, and the first things that are popping into your head are not Paxos or Raft. You need to go back to read a textbook, right? So, or maybe when I'm talking about like maybe certain things in certain kinds of like databases, you're not thinking about, okay, high availability calls to a database maybe like hitting a cache before hitting the database. If I say, okay, cache hits, cache miss, certain things, like if you don't know some of these certain things, maybe you should go back before stepping forward, right? So go back to the fundamentals and just like take some time learning a bunch of all these things. Now, when you do, it's also important to, like, I want to say network, but the problem with networking is that I might say this thing the wrong way now, and the next thing that will happen is that people on LinkedIn will just start randomly DMing people in the name of trying to build their network. That doesn't work, right? Provide value to your community, right? Provide value to your community, contribute to projects, build projects, right? There are so many things, protocols, things around governance, security. There's so many things now that you can build specifically in your domain that could apply to artificial intelligence. Find those, build one of them. Sometimes they could grow. Sometimes they could be a learning opportunity. Sometimes two of them could happen. But do something that adds value, right? And in the process of doing that, make sure that you're not staying under a rock, right? I don't know exactly the Bible verse. If you have a candle and you want to light it, you won't put it under the table, you bring it up, something like that. So the point is, I'm going to lift that for a second and say, if you have something that is of value, right? Don't keep it on your computer. The internet, even Bill Gates said this thing. I don't remember exactly when and where, but like it's a quote on the internet from him saying that if your business is not on the internet, you don't have a business. Something like that.
Sure.
Right. And so like there's literally the whole world of online at your fingertips through your data. Use it and put yourself. When I say put yourself out there, I don't mean become a creator that is posting every day. But like whatever value that you have, show it in however way you want to.
You can.
Right? And the final thing I would say is as you are showing up, show up consistently. Consistency beats intensity every time. It does not pay to show up for the entire week, posting 10 times in a day for the entire week, and then you disappear. It is okay to share something once a week and go. Sharing something once a week for one full year gives you better results than coming and being active for a full week, disappearing for 8 months, and then coming again, right? So show up consistently in all of this stuff that you're doing. So I think I've said 3 things. Go back to the fundamentals, contribute to your community and build your network, and then just show up consistently. I think those are the 3 places that I would start from if I wanted to give someone advice.
Oh, those are really insightful tips. And if you're watching this, I hope you can also take it and implement in your career. And I think one of the things that I have learned through this whole discussion is it's not always about putting a shiny bow on the title that you have and saying, I am a leader in this space, but like showing up with evidence. So thank you so much, Adora, for joining us today and sharing all of this with us, right? This has been so insightful. And one of my biggest takeaways from today's conversation is that personal branding is not always about being famous. You could be famous and still be doing the wrong things, and people may not trust you for that. And so, if you're watching and you enjoyed this, do well to also like follow up for more content. To everyone who joined us today, thank you so much. And once more, again, thank you, Adora, for making our time to join us today and for sharing all of this wisdom with us. It's been so exciting.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right. So we hope that everyone leaves today inspired, not just to update your resume, but to also be intentional and invest in your reputation and build better relationships and work towards a long-term career for yourself. See you next time on our next episode on Deborah's Strategy Room.